capacities there are of equivalent to any other place on the globe. And that story needs to be told.
Do you see the Sudan conflict as posing a great security threat in the Horn of Africa? Or how would you assess, that situation?
It could emanate.
Yeah.
It can emanate, just the instability there, and could affect more migration, whether that migration goes east, west, or even north, of displaced populations. Has reverberating effects across other communities that stokes conflict. We see that even down south when you look at the DRC and the M23 and displacing, as they marched upon Goma, displaced populations. It affects people's lives.
So you say you're not present on the ground, but is Africa monitoring the flow of arms, external influence in this conflict, including the latest reported use of chemical weapons by the RSF?
Well, you know that the U.S. is considering sanctions. So, yes, that's at the higher levels. Those policies, those decisions, or the White House, but at AFRICOM, we need to be able to do indications and warnings of that.
Are you concerned?
Which was one. We are investigating the use of those chemicals. So that's where our U.S. government takes over the number of communities across the leadership of the UN. They look into these things, and they do extensive measures to be able to investigate it.
But do you see a threat beyond the reference to terrorism? What do you think is the greatest threat in the region at the moment, beyond the common reference, for instance, to terror?
Well, I would just say just a number of layered threats that I see across the Sahel that emanates downward and could even rise up and back into the Maghreb. When conditions are met, it could exacerbate more instability across a population. That's why I always said that when we look for a solution set, and we're going to be able to table this issue again at this Chad conference.
We've heard of a move towards, perhaps from the whole government approach that you speak to what I've heard termed as burden sharing. Is there a change?
Yes, it is moving to burden sharing.
Explain to us what that means.
So we did a whole of government approach, and then we know that change of administrations went and they said, okay, let's look at what we've been doing and let's select out what has been working, and let's get laser focus on being able to be straight with our partners that have been building capacity and shifting and sharing of a burden. So a number of partners have that capacity with other allies that collectively can still build that model. Number of examples in West Africa that are in the process of rebuilding this. But the model is effective when you take into account of the whole community that's been affected by terrorism.
General, let's talk about countries taking on their own autonomy. You are on African soil, not for the first time, but this would be a good moment to ask about one of the countries that has taken its own autonomy, and that's Burkina Faso. Yeah. Your remarks recently at the Senate seem to suggest that he's diverting, General Traore, is diverting its 4 billion gold reserves to sustain his military rule rather than for public welfare. These remarks sparked widespread, condemnation across the continent. What did you mean by that statement?
Let me speak to Burkina Faso's sovereignty. They maintain their sovereignty. They make the decisions how they use their resources. They make the decisions who their resources go to for military support. That's their sovereign right. But my cautionary tale was just from a military perspective. That was a Senate Armed Services Committee asking me a direct question. Burkina Faso, a lot of great things going on to progress them forward, okay? But then when you look at the military part of it, knowing that that's the epicenter of global terrorism, it was my time to illuminate that this is probably their weakest point, and there needs to be sufficient resources going towards for the whole fight of terrorism in that country, period. They make their decisions, though. That's their sovereignty, their sovereign right to make their decisions, what is appropriate, what's not. But I wanted to illuminate that it's going in the wrong direction now. ISIS is getting stronger. JNIM is getting stronger. Al-Qaeda in the lands of the Maghreb is getting stronger in that country.
And do you think it's getting stronger after General Traore took over?
It has. Just look at the numbers of attacks. It really has, since 2022. I've been tracking this since I took command. So, no ill will towards him, but the decisions is their own. They're looking for other ways to be able to, they're still a warfighting footing. It's just going to take more resources.
So you stand by that statement? Because there's been pressure on you to walk those statements back.
That's my statement. That's my assessment. That is getting worse. More needs to be done for not just local, but whole of country, because of these violent extremist organizations are seeking revenue, they're seeking resources, they're seeking recruiting from the Burkinabe people, and they're seeking refuge within their country. That threatens their sovereignty.
And that threatens America's interest?
Say again?
Does that then threaten America's interest?
Yes, thank you for asking that.
Uh-huh.
Because especially ISIS, and of course in East Africa is inextricably linked all the way to ISIS West Africa, ISIS Sahel. And there's going to be probably a move afoot for them to move and seek refuge within the line. So we have shared objectives, and we offer to work together with the Burkinabe government and border countries. Mali, Niger, coastal West Africa countries, collective, because here's what these organizations do. Here's what these terrorist organizations do. They seek refuge in the seams or the borders of these countries and let them thrive and grow and let them recruit, gain resources to carry on their illicit and nefarious activities against the populations of those people.
And what would America, perhaps AFRICOM, be prepared to do? Would you be considering an ouster like we saw with Muammar Gaddafi in Libya? Because there's still many Africans who are yet to recover from that. If this is a bigger threat, as you say, in Burkina Faso, what is AFRICOM prepared to do about it?
We do indications and warnings. There's a number of activities that we do, and we'll just go ahead and mention building institutional capacity. There's not going to be U.S. boots on the ground. Very, very small for exchange of ideas and training, exercises. Over time, that builds institutional capacity and capability in these armies. There, AFRICOM, we're working towards a burden sharing and a burden shift for their independent operations. That's our goal. We have the shared objectives because these same terrorist groups can threaten our homeland. So we're in concert I was just an African lion over in Morocco. A number of countries working together.
Is Burkina Faso invited here today for this conference?
Yes. Yes. They were invited to African Lion in Morocco. Yes. Like I said, we're moving forward.
Okay.
We're moving forward because we have that shared goal of defeating terrorism.
All right. Speaking of that, because the reaction out of the statements that you made about Burkina Faso were several African leaders feeling you are speaking on sovereignty issues that America shouldn't be. And as a result, there are those who see the role of Africa as less of a partner in, the war against, shared threats, as you mentioned, and more of a protector of Western or American economic interests that allows access to Africa's vast mineral resources, and as more of a paternalistic relationship than one of respect amongst peers. What would you respond to that?
I respond that there's others on the globe that do that. There's others on the globe that do that. I'm going to bring it up, but we should have even already known. Okay, but I'm going to bring that up.
Okay.
We respect their sovereignty. We respect their decisions. We respect their decisions of who they choose as a security partner. And then we measure the common denominator that's keeping these countries across the Sahel from progressing forward. In 2050, the largest workforce on the globe is going to come out of the continent of Africa. The youth need hope. They need peace and stability so they can hit their potentials. That's a long-range goal of Africa as we look to help these countries set those conditions for stability and security so prosperity can be presented to all the populations and the youth. Pan-Africanism is real and it's strong, and there's opportunity to come up on the global stage, and this continent can do it. That's what we really envision.
So you're not concerned about